I'm security architect for Talon. And today we're going to be going through Defender for Cloud. So I have my boss, Mr. Stan Kennedy, and I have my partner in crime, Tom Cisluski. Tom will actually, if you have any questions, and you can just type them in the chat, and he would be more than able to answer those. So please feel free to ask as many questions as you like. Stan?
Thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone. Well, it's Wednesday. We're halfway there. I wanted to, personally thank you for joining today's webinar. I think we've got some pretty exciting things. We all know that, the cyber threats are intense. They're furious these days. So where do you start? And so we're hoping to share some of those ideas and best practices that we're aware of using Microsoft's Defender for Cloud and some of the tools that'll help accelerate your cloud security journey. I'm VP of our cloud services, so I'm super excited to have this presented to you today. And if you stick around to the end, we're going to go through, I think, a lot of useful information and some tools that are available to you. So Mark and Tom will kind of go through that with you. But then at the end, where do you go from there? What's the sort of next step? So at the end, we'll help you determine and figure out, give you some ideas on what that may be. So I think with that, Mark, I'm going to let you take it away.
All right. So again, as I said, welcome. As Stan mentioned, it's hump day, right? So we're all excited about that. Hopefully everything's going well, no fires, and that's amazing. So today we're going to actually talk about Defender for Cloud. Most of us, if you haven't heard, but it was a renaming of a lot of Microsoft different products. So this used to be Azure Security Center and Azure Defender. So security challenges, as Stan alluded to. I don't know about you, but I'm a security guy. And we've seen so many different things over the last few years. I mean, last year with COVID, there were so many more attacks. Those bad actors are all kind of bored. Some of those people may have just gotten bored, had real jobs, and now they have to figure out a way to pay, right? But we all have challenges. Are those challenges unique to your organization? Sometimes. But many of those challenges are not unique. We look at things, the visibility of security and compliance. We look at security controls. Without security controls, 68% of breaches take months or longer to discover. I don't know about you. I come from an analyst background. I don't want to spend a month diving down the proverbial rabbit hole trying to figure out what's going on. How we do business has changed. Cloud has really brought new challenges. How do we secure the cloud? 95% increase in breaches in 2019 with an average cost of $5.16 million. Again, increase in the number of attacks and the sophistication of those attacks. We now have bad actors working together as teams. Anybody remember the supply chain hack? Yeah. The group that did that got banned from the other group's software because they said, nope, you're not allowed to attack public infrastructure with our bad software. So now we have bad actors with morals and ethics, right? That's kind of interesting because they publicize that on their website. How do we get visibility into this? 12 billion cloud activities inspected, monitored, and controlled in Azure Cloud. So these are things that are challenges for all of us as we move to that cloud infrastructure. We look at the methodology that we have used, which most of us know as defense in depth. So if we start looking at the changing landscape, we're going to talk a little bit about zero trust. Y'all thinking, hey, wait a minute, Mark, you said this was about Microsoft, Defender for cloud. Well, it kind of is, but you have to have some information, in my opinion, first. Zero trust is really the new methodology of how do we secure that infrastructure. Do we still have defense in depth in the perimeter? Yeah. We spent years building layer upon layer upon layer of what we call militaristic defense. That's why it's called defense in depth. It's a layered security approach. What is zero trust? Zero trust is moving away from that strategy and looking at it in a different way. What do bad actors really want? They want my identity first, and then they want to compromise my devices, my data, all of that. Identity has now become, think of it as the new border. We don't really have defined borders in a cloud. It's everybody. IT security is extremely complex. I know in the 30 years I've been in this business, I have seen so many changes. Devices, applications, how users interact with those applications, their devices. We now have the Internet of Things. We have all of those different things going on now. We used to have this trusted network strategy, defense in depth, where, hey, as long as you're behind the firewall, everything's cool. Yeah, we had to look for insider threat, and occasionally somebody might make it through the firewall with something bad, but it's nowhere near what it is with cloud. Most of the attacks initially started as a network base. I remember when buffer overflow was 50% or more of all the attacks. I remember when DDoS and DOS were prevalent. If you've never heard of, what is his name? Can't think of his name. He wrote a firewall, and he goes through a whole thing about how he called somebody a script kiddie. And they didn't like being called a script kiddie, so they launched a distributed denial of service attack on his network. And he reverse engineered the bot they were using. Things are different now. Things are more refined in that bad actor world. They know if they can get an identity, they can use that identity to traverse the network. Lateral movement. Assets increasingly leave the network. We now have software as a service, mobile devices, the Internet of Things, bring your own device, all of those different things. Again, the attacks have shifted to identity. I don't know about you, but I know last year, even in my personal email, not just work, I saw thousands of phishing emails. I laugh because I'm a security guy. I don't click on those, Unless I know you, I don't even answer my phone unless I know you. These are things that we look at, but security teams are overwhelmed with events. How do I look at all of this data, right? Zero trust is a strategy. It's a framework. We work across securing different, what we call pillars that we're going to talk about in order to secure our architecture. The biggest thing, user access. Explicitly validate trust of that user to access requests, to access devices, applications, dynamically address insufficient trust. We're going to do this across business assets, across our applications, our data, everywhere. We're going to look at these identities, multi-factor authentication, using conditional access policy, all of those things. We're going to look at modernizing Secops, looking at visibility of our assets, inside and outside that firewall. We need to do remediation, but it has to be very rapid. We're going to look at automation. Most of us call it SOAR. We want to modernize all of that around our identities, our applications, our devices, detect and respond in an automated fashion. We need improved visibility. We need to see that data. We need to see those alerts. Looking at data centers, operational technology. Most of us don't even think about that operational technology. Hey, it's there, it functions, it does what it's supposed to do until it doesn't, until it goes down. Security architects are limited and constrained many times by the age of the technology that they're working with. Most of us don't think about that. So if you think about your data center, if you have a data center, a true data center, your true operational technology that's running, you know, much of that is 30 to 50 years old. All based on network protocols, all of that. But your routers, your switches, think about that. That's pretty old in the world of technology, but it's been around forever. I remember when a firewall was a router ACL. That's what you did. You didn't have a firewall. Again, looking at your data centers. Now we're in the cloud. You might be fully migrated to a cloud and that is your data center. That's way different than that traditional network that you had in a data center, where we have all the firewalls, all the proxy servers, all of our DMZ servers, and the list goes on and on. We need to increase security without decreasing productivity. We want to increase productivity. That's why people pay us. So looking at the foundations of Zero Trust, 3 guiding principles. They're universal. Verify explicitly. You want to always authenticate and authorize based on all data points. So I log in, I'm Mark. Okay, prove it. Okay, send me a message to my phone. Okay, now I've authenticated with 2. Now it might even ask me fingerprint. That's 3. Least access, least privileged access. Do you always need admin rights? No, you don't always need admin rights. So least amount of privilege to do your job. Just-in-time access. So I only have access. So for instance, let's say I'm a domain admin or an Azure admin, whatever. I might not have access. I have to fill out a request. And then my buddy Tom there is going to say, yep, Mark, I know you have to make some changes based on a change control, and he's going to approve that. Did I really need to do that? Probably not, but it's checks and balances. CYA, assume breach, minimize the blast radius, prevent lateral movement by segmenting access for your user, network, devices, app, data, all of that. Why do I assume breach? Because the only secure box is the one that's still in the box and has never been plugged in. And even then, I don't know if it's secure. I don't know who installed the operating system. Every PC I buy, I re-image because I don't know who installed it, what did they install, and I don't want most of what they installed. Assume it's been breached. Now, looking at comparing Zero Trust to Microsoft products, multiple layers of all of the pillars. So here I have the identity pillar, the devices, data, apps, infrastructure, and network. Now that's what Microsoft calls the 6 pillars. We at Talon also say there's a 7th pillar because policy is critical. It's how you drive compliance, not just your organizational policy, but it's also around Azure policy. Azure deploys a default policy to every subscription based on NIST 800-53. Think about being compliant with those policies. As a security person, Dan creates a policy and says, okay, Mark, you need to enforce it. How do I do that if I can't read it? If he doesn't give me one, I can't enforce policy. Policy without enforcement is just a suggestion. But we look at things like containers, VM, and you can see the crosswalk of how those products map to securing all of those pillars. This is why we're talking about Zero Trust before we're talking about Defender for Cloud. It's very important that you understand how you can secure these. For me to just tell you, hey, you need to make this secure, really doesn't give you much information. We look at things for device control, protection, inventory using Intune. Hey, what about analytics? Hey, I got all these products. I've got all these events coming in. I also have Sentinel, a SIM, so that I can send everything there and truly give myself a single pane of glass to look at, to correlate data, to get that threat information and remediate it as quickly as possible. This is why we talk about Zero Trust. And it's a maturity. So where do I start? Well, what are the 2 most prevalent attack vectors? Identity and devices. So I focus on 1 or 2 pillars of the trust model at a time. I don't want to blanketly go out there. Yeah, if it's a glaring hole, yeah, I'm going to secure it. But I want to spend my time focusing on what has the most attack surface area. Identity, devices. And I work my way through the pillars. How long is this going to take me? Well, that's a great question. How many different jobs do you have? And I bring that up because if you can't focus on this, your time is spread out. You've got 9 other jobs that you have to do. You're the network admin, the sysadmin, all of those different things. How much time do you get to spend securing your environment? But it's a level of maturity, and it's gonna take time. But it's understanding where to start, how the product can help you get there. Now, Azure, believe it or not, is the only cloud platform built by a security vendor. Wait, did you just call Microsoft a security vendor? Yep, absolutely did. They do $10 billion in security revenue. Most people are surprised to know that. They don't really think of Microsoft other than the operating system and a few other products. But Defender is one of the products that Microsoft has. They have more than 400,000 customers. 90 of the Fortune 100 companies use and trust Microsoft products to secure their infrastructure. There are 3,700 security experts that work at Microsoft. They spend over $1 billion annually on security. I actually know a few of those people. I've worked with them. Smart individuals. In 2020, there were 6 billion malware threats that were blocked by Defender. That's a lot. Microsoft actually also does threat intel. How do they do threat intel? Like any other security vendor, Microsoft collects signals from the internet. They have people who are dedicated to scouring the internet and looking for all of those things, those signals, to see what's good, what's bad. They collect over 8 trillion signals every 24 hours. That's a lot of intelligence that has to be surfed, that has to be examined, and that's why we also have AI. Automated intelligence. So looking at a kill chain model, if you're a security person like me, this is important. A lot of us talk about the Lockheed kill chain methodology, the pyramid of pain, how to do analysis. We talk about MITRE, the MITRE attack framework. So this is pretty much simplified. But when you're attacking cloud infrastructure, those bad actors often attack multiple resources in that cloud environment. So what's the exposure? So I'm going to look from their methodology. It's a 4-step process. I'm going to look for what's exposed. What can I reach? So customer-facing applications. They have to be open. So a web server has to be open so that my customers can access the web page, right? I'm a big box retailer and people buy stuff from me online. Okay, well, that's an exposed application. It's an exposed server. So they're going to also look for vulnerabilities, infect admin accounts. They're going to try to exploit weak credentials. Then they're going to look at accessing the virtual machine in and of itself, the web app, getting other credentials that might offer them elevated privileges. There's brute force attacks they might try. Automated bots that are just going to hammer with usernames and passwords. Internet of Things devices. Most people don't think about their phone. If your phone has access to your work environment, it's a threat. It's an exposure point. Now, once I get mainly credentials. What about lateral movement? Okay, so I exploited this one box, but there was really nothing on there that I wanted. I move. I have elevated privileges. I've dumped stuff. I've done other things. Now I'm going to go across with those privileges and find where those credentials have access. Lateral movement. During that lateral movement, I'm also going to look for other credentials. And I'm going to try to exploit those web apps, SQL databases, other virtual machines. What's my intent? Depends. Am I just a jerk and I just want to mess with you? Maybe I want to erase all your data. Data loss. But the biggest thing now is data exfiltration. I want to dump your database. I want to blackmail you. I want to sell stuff on the internet. These are the things that we look at. These are the things that go bump in the night. Now, why Defender for Cloud? Defender for Cloud offers security posture management. It's available for free to all Azure users. The free experience for that cloud security posture, you get Secure Score so that I can detect misconfigurations in my machines, my assets. Then I have cloud workload protection. Defender for Cloud integrated workload protection. It brings advanced intelligence. Protection for your hybrid. So let's say I'm using Azure Arc, which we'll talk about later in the presentation. I might have a hybrid environment where I'm managing multiple different clouds like AWS, I have on-prem, so I can use those resources and I can see my posture, but I need to secure that infrastructure. So you'll see here, where does cloud play? So from a big picture in this red box here, you can see I have firewall management. I have active my Azure policy, integrated threat protection. Defender is going to give you all of this information if you deploy it properly, deploy it where it needs to be deployed. These are things that we start looking at. These are the things that we want to bring to light so that people pay attention. Now, Defender for Cloud, when you look at the dashboard, it's going to help you strengthen your resources, your posture. It's going to compare you to similar sized organizations so you can see how you stack up. Where's everybody else compared to you? It's going to help you harden those resources. It's going to track your progress, your posture. It's going to help you protect against cyber threats. Streamline that management. It fills 3 vital needs for any organization. It continuously assesses your environment. Show me, show me, show me. Hey, look, you improved. You fixed this. Hey, look, you still need to remediate this. It helps me secure that environment. The biggest thing it's going to do, though, is help me defend. Hey, I saw all these bots trying to hammer on this endpoint. Why? What's special about that endpoint? What are the things that I need to look at on that endpoint to make sure that it's not compromised? Again, continuous assessment. That's Secure Score. You can tell at a glance your configuration, how secure it is. The lower the risk, the better. So if you've got a nice high score going on, you're doing well. It's going to help me harden. It's going to recommend things that I need to do, and it's going to be prioritized recommendations for hardening that environment. And we can follow the recommendations. We can do quick fix. There's a fix button you can do. Say, fix it for me. I don't even have to, all I have to do is read and see what it's going to do. Those security alerts, kind of like an email. If nobody pays attention, nothing's going to happen. Pay attention to them. It's alerting you for a reason. They appear in the portal, in the dashboard. What was the threat? What do you need to do? I can hook it up to a SIM-source solution so that I could fully automate it. If you see X do Y and Z, notify me and block. These are things that we can do as we mature our environment to where we're not involved at all. We create exceptions, all of that, to our Defender policy for those things that happen. Looking at the dashboard, you can see all of the resources, all of your secure score, your workload protection, regulatory compliance. We even offer you insights. My firewall manager, inventory, look at my systems, information protection. One dashboard, multiple panes of glass to get a deep dive into the security posture of your environment. These are things that we all want to know as security people. This is why we institute these types of products. Now I don't have to jump out. It's all integrated into Azure for me. I don't have 20 different consoles I have to go look at when I get an email. I can see how it relates. This secure score will help you gain insight to the security state of your cloud workloads. Looking at assets, compute resources, SQL servers, your network, and what percentage you stack up. Remediate them, and it has to be all of the resources before your score goes up, but it'll show you by how much it's going to go up when you do that remediation. It'll speed up the time to regulatory compliance. That's a big factor for many companies. I want to be compliant with those regulatory compliance requirements. Otherwise, hey, worst case scenario, if you're a SOX compliant company, if you don't comply with SOX, eventually you're going to get delisted from the stock exchange. That's a pretty bad thing to happen to a company that's publicly traded. It's granular control. These are the things we want to look at. So if I look at my secure score, I'm going to come over here. I see my box. What's the risk? I want to be able to look at this and see how I'm stacking up. It's continually assessing all of it, the resources, the subscriptions for your organization. It aggregates all those findings into a single score. The higher the score, the lower the risk. So here, you can see 47%. We're about almost 50%. What are my subscriptions? What do they look like? Who is my biggest risk? Where are my risks at? I can effectively use these controls, this dashboard, to go through and say, okay, I need to remediate this. Why is my score so low? Okay. Now, to increase it, I start looking at all of my recommendations. Red's bad. We all know that. We never want to see red. So I can drill into these specific issues. And I can start drilling in and taking action and remediating them. Compliance. No matter what, we all think about compliance. It could be just compliance with my organizational policy, but I want to be compliant. It can monitor AWS, Google, all of those things from a single dashboard. We get our benchmark monitoring, a policy to bench against. Again, these are the things that we start looking at, that we're thinking about in our environment. It's continually assessing. It's showing us the posture. We can drill into the compliance. What are we not compliant with? So here you can see identity management. Identity, that first pillar. If I'm working across the zero trust pillars, identity is the first one I want to secure, right? We talked about that. Why? Because it's where everybody wants to get to in the bad actor side of the house. I need to secure those identities as best I can. Again, regulatory compliance is extremely important. If you're a regulated environment, Microsoft offers tons of out-of-the-box compliance standards. Doesn't matter if it's US based, there are tons of other countries, Canada, UK, Azure. Azure has the CIS policy to help you be compliant. NIST. These are all things about best practices. These are the things that we as organizations all struggle with, but it's built in. I could apply that policy, and then I could go look at it and say, ooh, I need to fix that. That's bad. We need to be compliant with that. And I can work my way through those policies. Firewall manager. I can see how my firewalls stack up. So looking and drilling into firewall manager, how many virtual hubs do I have? What's the coverage? Virtual network security coverage. How many nets am I securing? How many didn't I deploy? It's almost 50%. DDoS protection, basic versus standard. Basic is free, but that's on the fabric. Standard, going to protect your environment at a granular level. So looking at secured hubs, the Azure Virtual WAN Hub is the Microsoft managed resource that lets you easily create hub and spoke architectures, best practice. Then you have a virtual network. What's that network look like? How many things are on that network? Did you deploy firewalls? All of that. Inventory. Single point for all my monitored resources. I can easily filter, sort, cross-reference. I can continue exploration in the resource graph. Reports I can download in CSV. All my management resources. I can filter all of this by tags, resource groups. I can filter by recommendations, specific vulnerabilities. I can export all of that into a spreadsheet so that I can prioritize my list and work through it. I don't even have to be in here once I download it. I can say, okay, Bob, go fix this. Looking at my inventory. Again, it's analyzing all your resources. I can see every resource. I can see when any resource has any outstanding recommendations. They'll appear in that inventory. The number of total resources, unhealthy, unmonitored, and unregistered subscriptions. Those issues I need to fix. I know I need to fix those. And this is why it's so important. You know, most people think Defender for Cloud. Okay, great. I've got an antivirus program. It is so much more. That's assessing the whole environment. It's not just antivirus, anti-malware. It's looking at the whole inventory. Did you apply patches? No. Is it old software? No. What is it? These are all things it's going to look at for you. Again, I can see I've got 1,900 resources, 318 are unhealthy. Thankfully, they're all monitored, but I can filter by anything and everything in here to see what's unhealthy. I want to see all healthy resources, and I need to fix those. But I have to fix them all for my score to change. My score is not going to change until I filter all through. Here's a quick little demo, just filtering through. A machine tagged environment. We can use tags. Tagging is a best practice of your resources in your Azure environment. But you can see by applying those filters, everything is going to get filtered to the exact point that I want to be. What do I need to see right now? And we've finally identified a machine with environment production. And it doesn't have a monitoring agent. Well, that's pretty important. Why doesn't it have an agent? What failed? What in my process failed that doesn't have an agent? Did it get uninstalled? Is it having a conflict? I need to remediate that. Instantly told me that by filtering. Then you have information protection. This graph uses Azure Purview. What contains sensitive information? It's all around that unified governance. Yeah, it's great. I could manage my environment, but what's my governance say? What do I have to do? On-prem, multi-cloud, software as a service data. It's a holistic view of the landscape, automated discovery. And I can see everything in a single dashboard. Both Defender for Endpoint, Azure Information Protection, I get all this data so that I can focus on what's the risk to my environment. It's all about risk. We need to do that analysis. We need to drill into that. We need to remediate it, bring our environment back into compliance. Doesn't matter what it's compliant with as long as it's compliant. I get the location of each of the resources. I get the type of the resource. Again, it's going to tell you how to fix the environment. I don't even have to guess. I don't have to go talk to Jane and ask Jane, hey, Jane, I'm not familiar with this product. How do I fix it? Defender for Cloud is going to make recommendations on how to fix it. In many cases, it's going to have a quick fix option. You'll see a lightning bolt next to it. Select the recommendation. From the Unhealthy Resources tab, select the resources that you want to implement the change on and remediate them all in one fell swoop. You're done. It's that easy sometimes. Is it always that easy? No. You might not be able to implement, even if it is a quick fix. Hey, you know, there's considerations. It's an old application, blah, 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 blah. So we create an exception. Get someone to sign off on the risk. all these fixed recommendations. I'm going to fix them all. One shot. All these lightning bolts. We expand the remediation steps. We highlight them all. And we click fix. That's it. And they're all going to self-update and do whatever they need to do to remediate that vulnerability. Well, that's our hope anyway. Could something fail? Maybe. But if we document all of that, we know which ones we did. Documentation is key. Should always document every change you make. But we can see, drilling into this operation, what it's going to do. We can choose the systems we want to run it against, and then we just click remediation steps. We click on that, we see everything that's going on, and then we remediate it. Now, looking at multi-cloud support, we can actually manage AWS and Google Cloud systems from Azure. That utilizes what's called Azure Arc. So this agent would get installed for servers, Kubernetes, data services, and we can manage all of that from one central point. So if you're a multi-cloud environment, you're jumping between 3 different clouds if you have all 3. I don't want to do that. That seems like a real pain to me. I actually want to have a single pane of glass. So that's what I do. I deploy Azure Arc so that I can manage that whole infrastructure from Azure. And when we look at this, again, I can do it on-prem as well. Not just Google Cloud and AWS, but I can also manage all my systems that are on-prem with Azure Arc. It's a huge win for my security posture, because now I'm not having to go look at different assets in different clouds on-prem. It's going to help me reach that compliance. Not just regulatory compliance, it's also about organizational compliance. A CISO is going to dictate their own policy, and it might be more strict than the regulatory compliance. It's going to allow me to have better threat detection on my servers, Defender for VMs. On those servers, those virtual servers, you're going to get a Qualys scanner so that you can scan it for vulnerability. Then as we move to a better, more secure architecture, we mature our environment. We've worked across the 7 pillars of Zero Trust. We now want to take it to the next level and automate. This is where we integrate with a SIEM so that we can do deep dive analysis, correlation of those events, create logic apps so that we can do SOAR, security orchestration and automated response. We can export that data. All of that stuff that we want to bring to the table, and all based on securing the architecture using Defender for Cloud as a starting point. Again, at the top here, I see all my resources, all my Azure, all my AWS, my Google Cloud, all the resources that were assessed. How many recommendations? We see we have 209 recommendations and 7,300 plus security alerts. That's a lot. Who's looking at these? We need to pay attention. If nobody pays attention to those alerts, really doesn't do us any good. It's insights into my environment, into my products. What are the most attacked things in my network? Figuring out why. These are things we start looking at. Again, it's integration. Microsoft products are fully integrated with each other. I don't have to wonder. I know they're going to work. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, well, I got this, I got that. Microsoft really is security. $10 billion worth a year and growing. Integration is huge. Many third-party integrations can be very complex. So why buy a different SIEM if Sentinel I know is going to work for everything, right? Why buy a different antivirus? It's already there. This is cloud native. Why would I want an on-prem SIEM when I could have a cloud native SIEM to monitor everything, including on-prem? These are things we think about. It's comprehensive threat protection across everything, not just my Azure cloud, my Google cloud, my AWS cloud, my on-prem, all of that. We can also utilize public preview features. Test those out, see if they work for us. Key vault. Protecting my key vault is critical. If I can get into the key vault as a bad guy, I own the keys to the kingdom. I can protect it all from one place, and that's key. I can see all of the things in one dashboard. I can look at my workload protection, which is fully integrated with Defender for Cloud when I use the advanced protections. It's intelligent protection. It's scanning everything. It knows everything because we've deployed it. Pulling all that information back. That workload protection is critical. My hybrid cloud. What are the things running? I get prioritized alerts, insights into those threats. What is this threat? Why is it so important? All of that's going to be communicated to me through the dashboard. And that's what I want. I don't want to have to go to Google. We all know Google's our friend, but I don't want to have to go to Google and say, okay, what is this? Why is it? Defender for servers. I can protect my Linux boxes. It's not just Microsoft. I can reduce the open ports. I can utilize just in time, just enough. I can limit the ports with adaptive network hardening. Block malware with adaptive controls. Protect Windows servers and clients with Defender for endpoint, and I can also protect my Linux servers. Again, these are the things that Defender for Cloud is going to bring. I can protect against brute force with just in time. And that's huge. I don't want brute force attacks. Limit open ports with adaptive network hardening. The only ports should be open are the ones it uses. I've written several hardening documents in my career around hardening a server before it's allowed on a network. I don't have to do that in the cloud. I just deploy something and say, harden it. These are the ports that are supposed to be open, nothing else. Turn on the built-in vulnerability. It's critical that you utilize the product to its fullest capabilities. We want to continually scan our servers to make sure that everything is as it should be. Only the installed applications should be running for Linux and Windows. We want to scan those for vulnerabilities, scan the operating system for vulnerabilities, Tell me what I need to fix to make this 100% perfect. We're looking at all of that with this product. Again, Defender for SQL, protecting my databases. What's in my database? Oh, pretty much just about every piece of customer information. Credit card numbers, social security numbers. I don't know what your business is, but those typically get stored depending on your business. So we can use Defender for SQL, protect against all sorts of different attacks, SQL injection, all of that. Who's trying to get there? What are they trying to do? Defender for storage, storage accounts, yeah. Got my storage. Where's all my data being stored? I need to protect that. I have to make sure this isn't publicly accessible. I have to make sure that the identities are secure. Make sure there's something to make sure this attacker can't get to that storage container. All about security. It's a rich detection suite. Response at scale. Centralized and integrated management. Defender for containers. Qualys scans all the Docker images, and it utilizes dynamic analysis rather than static analysis. So it's going to see more of what that exploit might be, rather than just doing a static. Less false positives. I can look at and scan and ship. I can scan the image at runtime. All of those things that we need to do to protect that container. Kubernetes. Again, container protection. Kubernetes has become the standard for containers. It's the new standard. And protecting it is critical. We don't want them to have access to our containers. They could change the code. I don't want them to change the code. We want to protect all of that by using Defender for containers. Looking at an attack matrix here, you can see initial access, cloud credentials, compromised images, Kubernetes config file being compromised, application vulnerabilities, exposed dashboards. All of these things across that whole chain, that whole matrix. So if you look, execute into the container, backdoor container, privilege container. The list goes on, how they're going to try and exploit you. It's a breadth of threat protection with Defender for Cloud. Any workload in Azure, protecting Key Vault, DNS, Defender for Resource Manager is going to monitor all of this. We want to continually monitor, continuously protect. The Internet of Things. Oh, yeah. All those things that we might not have thought about, but we could protect it. It's now agentless. Microsoft acquired a company called CyberX. And now it can secure brownfield, all those things that can't be changed, as well as greenfield devices, where you're free to do whatever you want. But again, looking at the inventory, the vulnerabilities, detecting threats, utilizing a SIM, Sentinel, to get deep dive analysis and correlation. Now, yes, this is an old study. Total economic impact of Azure Security Center, written a couple of years ago, before all the name change and everything, but it's still very valid. Forrester did a study, which Gina, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat or put a link to it, I'd appreciate that. And you can read the full study. Now, I'm not a numbers guy, NPV, net present value. I'm a security tech head. that doesn't mean much to me. Now, I understand return on investment. So cost me $1.1 million, but I saved $3.6 million over a 6-month period. That's huge. My boss wants to know that. But what I want to know is I saw 25% reduction in risk of security breach. Hey, that made my job 25% easier. 50% reduction in time to threat mitigation. So save me 50% of my time. Yes, I'm in. 30% reduction in security policy and compliance management time. Again, and then annual reduction in security tool spend, $216,000. Again, you can read the full study, but this is huge when it comes to time and money. These are all things it brings to the table. So, again, looking at this, Talon actually has a security assessment program to where we'll educate you through workshops, Zero Trust, Cloud Adoption Framework, Defender. We'll run an in-depth assessment on your policies, on 365, Defender, all of that. And then we'll even help you by recommending solutions, the total cost estimate, all of that. Thank you again for your time. I'll turn it back over to my boss.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Well, thanks everybody for joining today's webinar. We really appreciate that. I know everybody's busy, so we definitely appreciate taking a part of your day and spending it with us. Hopefully, this was educational and it got you thinking about some of the areas that some of the Microsoft services, Azure services can help. If you would like to inquire and get some help, obviously contact me at stan.kennedy@talon.com. And we really appreciate it and hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.